Hey, I'm StayLoose, and I'm an electronic producer from Denver, Colorado, and I'm going to talk about the song Never Give Up that I produced for the Arknights video game. I'm a producer and touring artist for the past 7 years. I live in Denver, Colorado. I make electronic music, pop music, rock music, all kinds of music. I produce in Ableton Live, and I play a plethora of live instruments too. I started making music when I was in high school, and I started producing electronic music on a computer and in Ableton in 2011. So I've been producing for just about 10 years now. My favorite kind of music to make is anything that emotionally drives me and that I connect with. I don't really get hung up on genres. I just like really good songs that make me feel something emotionally. My first impression of the game was that it was modern and futuristic, and it's kind of in this dystopia. But once I got into it, I realized it was a very fresh take on RPGs, and at the same time, it also felt very nostalgic to sort of like a homage of some RPGs of my youth. So when I was asked to do a piece for the Arknights game, I was really excited because I grew up playing RPG video games, and that world's always really excited me. I actually spent a lot of time playing games that are in that realm when I was in middle school and in high school. So when I got asked to do the song for Arknights, and I read about the side story and how the storyline inside the brushstroke of a painting that's like this never-ending loop, that's like this reoccurring dream that keeps happening. I thought that was really interesting and really cool how everyone living inside that loop isn't sure that they'll ever get out, but they still have hope, they still have heart, they're not being defeated by the fear of that. So the minute I heard the song, I had a lot of ideas on how to produce it and to keep it minimal with a lot of weight on the emotion and the vulnerability that is present in the vocal. I think when producing the song, I tried to keep it as minimal as possible. So I played some pianos, a little bit of electric guitar, and just keeping the drum beat and a lot of bass programming with using this wall of synthesizers that's right here behind me. Yeah, so the task of adding some Chinese instruments to it, I thought was really appealing. I love the sound of those instruments. So I just did some research on the internet, and I found this stringed instrument that's called a guzheng. And I watched some YouTube videos of people playing that, and I really liked that sound. I thought it would fit really well inside the track because it kind of has sort of a kind of a guitar feel, which is something I'm familiar with since I started as a guitarist initially. So when writing the guzheng part, I wrote it on a VST and using some samples, and then later sourced someone on the internet to replay those parts so we could use the live instrument as a whole in the track. Also used a Chinese instrument called a pashao. I'm not sure I'm saying that right. It's essentially like pan pipes, kind of a pan flute sound, and that's something that I had run in the later half of the song to sort of lift that moment in the track even further. So when the song breaks down after the second verse, and then there's that nice piano and then that nice vocal melody, and then when it drops out there, I brought those the pashao in along with that cello to really give it like that nice solo moment that happens there. It sort of like feels like sitting on a mountaintop with like the wind blowing your hair. in that moment. Coming up with the drop, I knew that we needed something that was minimal yet emotional, and it needed to be driving without having too much loud energy to it. So obviously putting a 4/4 beat into the drop was going to keep it driving and allow it to remain minimal. And so at that point I kind of felt like after I got the 4/4 house beat going on in there, I really wanted to do something that connected it to me and my project as an artist. So that's where I programmed the sort of like donk 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 house bass sound in there, and I went in and found a phrase of the vocal saying we will never give up, and I just cut out the we will never, and I looped that part to run through over that nice bass line. So in the drop of the song, I made sure that the gazang runs throughout almost the entirety of the track. I didn't want to lose the little walk down that happens on that instrument at the tail end of every time. I felt like that was such a staple of the track. So when the drop happens, or the chorus rather, I made sure that that little part continues to poke through. It's just those 3 notes that walk down in the scale right there. So I made sure that that sort of was like a staple of the track, was having obviously the vocal and the gazang and also some violins. I layered a lot of violins and cello moments in the track and made them very sort of airy and sit nice just back enough from the mix where they can really be felt and feel very emotional. And I think it makes the track feel uplifting at the same time as melancholy. The first time I heard the demo for Never Give Up, I really felt emotionally connected to it. I felt like the lyrics were very honest and the melodies were, they sounded very vulnerable. And especially the chorus section, I really connected with that. I really like the theme and the message of Never Give Up. So the concept of Never Give Up, I really relate to. I've been on the path as an artist and a musician for years and years and years and I had no success for the first 15 to 17 years of trying to be a musician. But I just never gave up. Every time I set my mind to a task or I set a goal, I just work towards that until it happens. So never giving up is really like, it's a creed of mine. And so when I heard the track, when I heard the vocal and I heard the lyrics, I connected with it immediately because it's something that really, I feel like, speaks true to who I am and what I believe. So when the lyric in it says to some follow their heart, I really connected with that because following your heart is what life's all about, and you've got to believe in yourself to overcome the trials and tribulations of life. So I felt like there was a lot of inspiration in the lyrics of the track, speaking about staying true to yourself, staying on the path of your dreams, staying focused on your goals and following your heart and not listening to what other people say or worrying about what other people might think. You've just got to do you, and that's all. That's what life's really about. We worked really hard on this song to get it perfect and emotional and get it connected with the game, and I hope everyone really enjoys it.
Hello, doctors in Arknights Global. My name is SIHAN LIN, an independent animator and illustrator, as well as the director of a music video Never Give Up.
When I first saw the material Yostar sent to me, I noticed the strong elements of Chinese culture within the design, including the music and the traditional Chinese evening painting that are not very common in the typical style of this game. The game designer did a great job of incorporating different elements of Chinese culture not only through the appearance but also through the storyline and ideology. I was greatly impressed by how they used the concept of Taoism and Zen or Chen in Chinese pronunciation to integrate organically into their background story. As Chinese ink painting are typically seen as conveying the essence or spirits of a subject over a direct imitation, I also need to translate those anime figures into the ink style while applying brush textures and an ink flowing style, as well as keeping the characters and elements recognizable at the same time. As a designer, I choose to simplify them rather than stacking them together and causing them to become complicated. As for the tranquil scene, all the scene is less dynamic. I am usually interested in applying the non-figurative feeling of light ink, which is wet and fuzzy. For the mountain scene and other dynamic scenes, I try to simulate the technique of dry ink and flying white to emphasize the brush texture. One of the other difficulties we had was incorporating the camera footage and frame-by-frame animation to fit together because the frame rates for the flowing ink technique and hand painting animation differ. The appearance and textures of two materials also turned out to be different from each other. So we did a lot of experiments, such as using different blending modes and color corrections to fit them together within the frames and make them look more natural. There is a famous story in Zen tradition that tells a monastic who come to Master Zhao to learn how to achieve enlightenment. This story demonstrates the idea of Zen tradition that tea and Zen are one taste, 禅茶一味, and that wisdom is found within ordinary life and never separated. For the album cover and title, during the design phase, we wanted to create a typeface with elements that shows the struggle of characters as well as the appearance of ink wash animation. We first decided to use the reverse type style to indicate the conflict, and then separate the letter V to emphasize the sense of conflict. Finally, we minimize the contrast of the type to achieve a better balance between the calligraphic stroke and the typographic structure. Hope this music video can bring courage to those who are suffering in pandemic and to anyone who are experiencing hardships. No matter how difficult the environment we are in, may we all keep happiness and joy within us and never give up.